Hey there, Tim Bauer here from LiveVideoGuitarLessons.com with a practice tip of the day. This one is for the intermediate player, and today I want to talk a little bit about using distortion with your electric guitar. As soon as you plug into your your distortion pedal or run through the distortion channel on your amp, you're going to notice immediately that your guitar just becomes super sensitive, and because of that, you have to be very careful. You have to do a lot of muting, a lot more than you would have to if you're playing an acoustic guitar or if you're playing through the clean channel. Distortion sounds very cool. I mean, it allows that sensitivity allows you to do a lot of stuff. It allows you to get a lot of sustain. I mean, it'll just go on forever. Almost, with the distortion. But the trade-off is you have to quiet those strings that you don't want. I just want to give you a couple of quick tips on how to do that. Number one, if you're playing leads, you have to kind of lean your fingers over. So, like if I want to play this, I don't know, this G note, for instance, I don't play it like I'm playing a chord, because if I want to lean my finger over so that I'm muting strings out that I don't want to hear. And I'm also throwing my thumb over the top to mute out strings I don't want to hear. So even though I'm just playing this G note right here, my finger is touching, and it's just touching with whatever's left over of my finger to mute out those strings so they don't ring. I'm using my thumb over the top to mute out the bottom strings I don't want to hear. So, and I'm also, like, say I need to take my fingers away to do a little vibrato, or I'm just catching like one note. Like for instance, I'm playing the C note right here. I'm just playing this note, but I'm leaning my finger in a way that I'm touching the D string up from underneath and muting that out. It's not completely muting out, of course, because the distortion makes it very sensitive, but there's something called masking. The note that you want to hear is much louder than the muted kind of terrible sounding stuff that you don't want to hear, and you don't hear it as much. The louder one covers up the other one, masks the other one. And I'm leaning my finger over this way to mute out the second string. So just kind of keep that in mind. On this hand, you can do some stuff over here too. So like, all right, so you can use your thumb. I'm laying my palm back here to kind of mute strings out. You end up having to play very. It's hard to describe. I mean, you end up having to play very tight and very close. Everything has to be really close to the guitar strings. Like instead of just like strumming wildly like you would on an acoustic guitar. Your hand's not that far away when you're doing this stuff with distortion. Even if I'm playing chords. Do a lot of palm muting. You lay this part of your hand over the bridge, and it's a very subtle business. You have to, if you're a couple of millimeters in too far this way, then there's too much mute. If you're a couple of millimeters too far back that way, it's not enough mute. It's a constant adjustment, and you get used to it after a while. You just let your ears be the judge. And you can also, when you're playing leads, you can like say I want to play this note, this G note here, and say I played this E note right before it. When I hold my pick in a way so when I go to hit that G note, my thumb touches the fourth string just before I hit that note. And it's kind of subtle. I know you can't see it, but you hold the pick in a way. So when I go to pick that, basically right before I hit the string, it looks like that, and my thumb is laying across all these other strings. Most importantly, the string I just left, because when you pick your finger up off a string, that makes a noise too. And if you catch it right at the correct time, laying your thumb across it right before the pick hits the other one, it quiets the other string. And you notice I'm kind of holding everything all down in here too. Anything you can touch on your guitar, there's a lot of finesse with it. That's what I mean about it's hard to explain, but you just kind of grabbing everything really, really close, and you can tell when you're doing it right because everything sounds clean, and when you're doing it wrong, everything's ringing and it just sounds like you dropped your guitar off the roof and it's just making a lot of noise. You have to kind of dampen everything down and use whichever fingers that you're not using for whatever you're working with. Use those to mute other strings. If you're playing an A chord, don't do it this way if you're using distortion. Or you can, but if you do it this way, you have all these other fingers to mute out the other strings. So, and I'm throwing my thumb over the top. You can't really tell, but I'm touching the 6th string with just hanging the skin over my thumb, over the top, and that mutes out that string. And I can use these other fingers to kind of mute those other strings out. So anyway, just it takes a little patience, but make sure you play some with the distortion on, so you kind of get a feel for that. Play some with the distortion off too, because once you get used to playing with distortion, it can become a huge crutch, and you just I've seen people who especially when they're playing leads, they just leave the distortion on all the time, and it covers up a lot of mistakes. It sounds very cool. That's why people do it, and they let that effect kind of be kind of drive what they're doing with their improv. And sometimes you need to play improv without the distortion on, because you're not using that. You're not leaning on that effect. You have to lean on the notes that you're making and how you make the notes and how you manipulate the notes. So you need to kind of go back and forth. Make sure you do it both ways. But I just wanted to make sure I had you or give you a couple of hints on keeping that distortion quiet, because I've also seen it the other way where people the distortion is so noisy and just so much stuff going on, they never turn it on. So you have to do it. You're a guitar player. You have to know how to play lots of different kinds of music and lots of different kinds of styles and lots of different kinds of programs with your guitar. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Thanks for tuning in for this practice tip. Tune in again tomorrow for another one, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.